Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Alliance, your home on the Geek Ultimate Alliance podcast network for any and all things Star Wars. I'm your host, as always, Katie, and I've got a nice glass of bourbon tonight because it's just been that kind of week.
I should have poured myself a glass of tequila. I have it. It's right there. I should have just done it because I feel you. I'm right there with you.
I have two pinched nerves in my back.
Well, I don't feel that, but
up right now. So, yeah. But hey, it's my birthday Sunday, so you know.
Yay!
Did I ever tell you happy birthday, Clay?
I'm sure you did.
Okay. If not, happy birthday, dude.
I mean, it's 6 months too late, but you know.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Why did I think your birthday was last week?
That was last month was Abby's and Amber Lynn's. So
okay, that's probably it.
That's what it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So clearly you can tell that we have had a day and a half already. As you can see on the title of this episode, this is going to be our Tears of the Nameless review. Of course, with these reviews, whoever is joining us who is new to Star Wars Alliance, we are changing things up for our reviews. We are making it as spoiler-free as we possibly can. Now, by the time we are releasing this, the book has already been out. This is different than our normal reviews that we usually get ARCs for, ARCs. But we are still going to try and keep it as spoiler-free as we possibly can. There are moments that we are probably going to want to talk about. We will warn you about those spoilers.
We will try to save them for the end because I know there's one in particular, specifically chapter 25, that we need to talk about.
Yes, indeed. But before we jump into...
Sorry, just as a heads up for everybody, I could not find my Kindle anywhere. So I have my hard copy of the book, which I have not opened yet. So my notes are goodness knows where. So
I surprisingly have 0 notes in this book, but I am trying to remember specifically where things are. There was a name drop in this book that we have heard recently in other media of Star Wars that I'm going to bring up as well. But there are specific things that I want to talk about in this book. But before we do that, of course, we always try to do the news roundup. We try to look at what has been talked about recently in the Star Wars universe of all things. And as far as I can tell, one of the very first things I see on our list of things to talk about is, according to the Hollywood Reporter, Lucasfilm is considering making multiple seasons of Skeleton Crew unless the show receives poor viewership. I like how they have to now. You can't assume because, and it pisses me off also. But yeah, considering making multiple seasons of Skeleton Crew, and I think that this, of course, we have to take everything with a grain of salt when it comes to Star Wars nowadays. But I personally think, with the idea of the first pitch of this show, it is Stranger Things within the Star Wars universe. I think that within itself can lobby more seasons than your average pitch because of the strength of what Stranger Things is at Netflix. You bring that into the Star Wars universe, I think you can possibly make more seasons of that. Of course, we have already seen poor reception from the bigoted, obnoxious, stupid people who think they are fans of Star Wars. And you have to remind yourself, these people think they are fans of Star Wars, but they don't know what Star Wars is. So, take that as you will.
Somebody, for example, y'all, somebody found a video of a certain YouTuber who shall not be named because
I saw this.
This YouTuber had a positive live reaction to The Rise of Skywalker, but now has turned on it with epic proportions.
Yeah, I thought that was hilarious.
I about died. I did not watch the video because, again, I didn't know if it led to his channel or what. I didn't want to give him views.
No, I literally just saw the video on Twitter. Like, it was just like a clip of the video. And so
okay.
I was like, yeah, I can definitely watch this. But yeah, it goes to show what people will do for clicks and to be in the spotlight and change their entire personality for the sake of those things, which is really, really stupid in my opinion.
And we're not saying you can't change your opinion, but the way this got changed, not the same at all. So
yeah,
this
exactly.
Skeleton Crew news has come out of specifically a Hollywood Reporter article entitled "Is Disney Bad at Star Wars? An Analysis." And in it, it talks about Skeleton Crew being already greenlit for multiple seasons unless it gets bad viewership. It also talks about, which was not officially announced, but it talks about, and Hollywood Reporter is one of those sites where it's like, okay, we can believe you for the most part.
Yeah.
So it says, The Mandalorian came 2021 spinoff The Book of Boba Fett, which is where some problems with the franchise's TV efforts first emerged. So much about this brief effort was weirdly clunky. 2 Mandalorian episodes were inexplicably sandwiched into the show's 7, and they felt like a band-aid attempt to repair a struggling show. The Book of Boba Fett was originally a series, not a mini-series, but it was quickly considered concluded. It also says the 4th season of Mandalorian was pivoted into The Mandalorian and Grogu with no chance for the show to come back, which we had kind of talked about last week.
Yeah, and well, now we're getting word that it was due to the poor reception of season 3.
Yeah.
Which I think is really silly. Now, granted, we have seen shows nosedive and never come back. The CW's Flash, for one. It has become a meme. But guess what? The 10-year anniversary of season 1 just came up, and people were praising the show like it was the best thing the CW has ever crafted. But just a year and a half ago, we were all making fun of it. Like, you know, it's like the internet is not real life. And I think that studios need to understand that. There is and I will admit, the internet is a conundrum because they can turn a meme into a wild sensation that drives movies to $1 billion. And they can do the complete opposite. I understand that. I totally do. But to base decisions like this, are you now going to turn every TV show into a movie when the first sign of a season going downhill? Like, Zombies and Cheerleaders on Disney Plus is now getting a theatrical release after season 17 was horrible. Like, that doesn't make any goddamn sense. Sorry. It just doesn't. So I think this is silly. Along with
it's absolutely
this,
silly.
I don't know if it was in this particular article, But because we're talking about Disney Plus shows, we've also heard from, I believe, Ewan McGregor himself stating that they are currently exploring ideas for Obi-Wan
For
Kenobi
season 2.
season 2. This is where I'm so confused, because wasn't there, correct me if I'm wrong, the last 2 episodes, there was a lot of controversy over those 2 episodes, were there not?
Yes. Yes, there was.
I do not understand the deciding hand over at Disney and Lucasfilm. I do not.
I don't either. Especially as it becomes more and more clear that Ewan McGregor kind of stood on his own when it comes to defending Moses Ingram.
Yeah, 100%.
And like, he basically forced the hand of the Star Wars executive team and was like, okay, I'm not promoting the show, basically, is probably what he said, unless you defend her and you post this video. Yeah. Because there's been nothing for the Acolyte. And even oh my gosh, Jodie Turner?
Yes, Jodie Turner-Smith.
Jodie Turner-Smith, who played the leader of the witches.
Mother, I forgot her name.
Anastasia.
Yes.
She's like called him out on it, and really, honestly, good for her. Like, that takes a lot of guts, because basically everybody's called him out on it secretly. But Jodie Turner-Smith did the right thing. She has said, they've got to stop. Oh my gosh, Twitter, come on. They've got to stop doing this thing where they don't say anything when people are getting fucking dogpiled on the internet with racism and bullshit. It's just not fair to not say anything. It's really unfair. It would just be nice if the people that have all the money, whether that be Disney or any studio, were showing their support and putting their feet down. Say, this is unacceptable. You're not a fan if you do this. Make a really big deal. We're going to get there. And then she went on to say, we're going to get there at some point to that place where people stop having a stick up their ass about people of color being a part of IPs that were created by white people. Because you know why? We're never going to stop fucking participating. And that last part is paraphrased because I can't read. But basically.
And the thing is, like, it is absolutely wild that in 2022 we are still having this conversation. Hey, people, I'm not sorry for saying this, but people of color have existed for all of eternity. Like, they didn't just appear 2 years ago. They didn't just appear out of nowhere. Like, it's so dumb, because it only happens selectively also, which really pisses me off, because you have people like the conundrum of Will Smith. I'll go ahead and say this. Will Smith has been Hollywood's like poster boy at sometimes, and he's been the meme of the internet on the entire other side of the spectrum. People don't understand this, or people don't realize this. At one point, Will Smith was so big in Hollywood, WB approached him to be Superman. Did you know this?
I didn't know that. I was nodding along like I knew that. I didn't know that.
Will Smith was approached to play Superman, and he even said, you got to be crazy to think that a black man can play a white man's superhero and live to tell the tale. He knew the writing on the wall, which is why they ended up making his other superhero movie, Hancock. Yes. Which is, they shifted it, and they're like, okay, well then we'll make another superhero just for you.
Yeah. And it's quite honestly ridiculous, but like, what gets me, and I know we're jumping around, y'all, I'm sorry, but like, this is just, so the Secrets of the Clone Troopers came out, which is an in-universe book written by Captain Rex about clones. and it has, and we're going to talk about the other part of this later, but it has in-universe art of Sister, a trans clone trooper that was introduced in Queen's Hope. And so many people have jumped on that artwork today and been like, why does this exist in Star Wars? Like, I can't believe you want to think, like, go woke, basically, like all that stupid talk. And like, it's just ridiculous to think that, oh yeah, Disney is doing this stuff because they can't even, like, for books, like, that's not something that they're ever going to think about, y'all, because I mean, they can't even defend their people of color and their LGBTQ members in live action TV shows, which are like their top priority.
Yeah, no,
below
you are
movies. So,
completely right. Yeah.
like, Disney didn't have oversight into this. Otherwise, Disney would have said no to ever including her in Queen's Hope. So shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Now, I do understand some people's criticism in a more positive light. Star Wars Queers Watch posted and shared this post and says, actually don't like how it makes it sound like Sister is unique. There should be absolutely loads of trans clones. When looking in the retrospect of how many clones there were in retrospect, you could probably think like, yeah, there's probably more than just one, you know? So they do bring up a good point in that. And I would like to see that possibly like shown in some sort of way that would make it meaningful rather than just being like, oh, here's a quota thing. Like a lot of people think that there is.
Well, like, to say the, like, not that there shouldn't be multiple, like, trans clones in the clone army, because you're right, there's like tens of thousands of clones.
Yeah.
So you've got a buttload, but who's to say Rex knew all of the clones? Like, so kind of putting it from that perspective, like, for all intents and purposes, she could be unique to Rex, but there could be others out there that Rex has never met. So
that is true. I didn't even consider that the Secrets of the Clone Troopers was a story that was specific to Rex, right? That's what the whole book is about. Yeah.
Because you have The Secrets of the Jedi, which is written by Luke, and then you have The Secrets of the Sith, which is written by Palpatine. So it kind of makes sense that they're mirroring that. And I think you even have like Secrets of Wookiees. So yeah, they've all just kind of picked a storyteller to tell those stories from. So
very nice.
But
all
right, where do you want to go next?
Book, well, speaking of this book, since we're already on topic, the first little inkling of this book that I had seen, I shared into our group, The Secrets of the Clone Troopers, a new in-universe book about clones written by Captain Rex, confirms that Rex fought in the Battle of Endor and provides the strongest evidence of the biggest fan theory in all Star Wars history has finally surfaced. And everybody, of course, is you guys probably know what I'm even talking about. This actor that literally looks like Rex as an older Rex. They've basically confirmed it here. They have a photo of him in Secrets of the Clone Troopers. And the one little detail that I absolutely love about this photo is the fact that he still has his arm, like, gauntlet.
Oh.
Yeah, like his little gauntlet with his clone trooper.
Oh
yeah. So it's very simple. Like, of course, you're thinking, okay, yeah, he looks like the actor that was played in the Return of the Jedi, but it shows you right there that on his hand and forearm is his actual clone trooper armor, and it actually has like the tally marks of his kills. So I thought that was very, very cool, very interesting. And now you don't have to say it's headcanon, because now it's canon.
Well, and it's still like not like super canon, but he's there at Endor. So it's not necessarily that he's that person that's in the picture from Return of the Jedi, but he might as well be.
He might as well be. They look exactly the same. Now, there's plenty of people out there that are trying to like prove that like it's not him, and they're like, oh, see this dead clone, that's actually him. I'm like, why would he be wearing stormtrooper armor if he's fighting for the rebels? Like, that makes no sense whatsoever. But yeah, I think that it's awesome. I think it's cool. But from there, oh yes, other book news. You shared this the other day. In July of 2025, next year, Insight Editions will reprint all 9 William Shakespeare's Star Wars books by Ian Dosher?
I think so.
Yeah. And it was originally published by Quirk Books. I always see these at Barnes & Noble, at Target. They're just like randomly there, and they always have like a discount sticker, and I'm always like, I want to buy it, but like I can't really like give myself like the go ahead to make that purchase right then and there. But if these are reprints with like new art and stuff, I might consider like, let's give it a try.
If there's a box set, I might pick these up just to like kind of have them in like the full set. But I don't know if I would pick them up individually.
Yeah.
So 100%. That's my qualm. The last bit of book news that we have is that there is in fact an art book for Star Wars Outlaws, and it is coming July 8th, 2025 from Dark Horse Comics.
Yes. I probably won't pick this up. I haven't really been picking up the art books for the video games. I have to be selective in the art books that I purchase because they are usually somewhat of coffee table books. I have a 2-year-old that loves to draw on everything, and I can't. She will see paper and her brain will go like, oh, I can draw on that, and I can't make that risk. I can't take that risk.
Yeah, I'm slowly picking up my coffee table books from the rest of the house, and I'm putting them up. Because, you know, like that position where they're like on the hands and knees and like rocking back and forth.
Yeah.
Like right before they start crawling. Yeah, she's doing that.
Yeah, that's gonna be like, it's your warning of like, hey, I'm about to be all over this house, basically.
Yeah, and I realized that I made Amazon Prime purchases for like solid foods today, but I didn't buy any childproofing things. Probably should do that.
Nah, it's fine. Amberlynn has hit her head on so many different things. I'm just like it's.
I'm more talking about these bookshelves that I don't want falling on her.
That is true. So I have legitimately seen, and this is actually something that I have seen being purchased while I was working at a company that was doing office furniture and stuff. You can buy anchors for your bookshelves and have them installed. So
that's what I'm gonna do. That's
what you should 100% do.
I have all my childproofing stuff in a list because I wanted to like do it while I was thinking about it. Yeah. I just haven't hit buy on it yet. Sorry, random side notes. This is how my brain works.
But other than that, there's only really one other thing as far as the news goes, and it is our first inklings of a Star Wars Celebration going on next year. Of course, we now have the art for the badges, which I didn't think was going to be that big of news, but holy crap, they popped off when they released this. And I have to say, I really dig this art. Of course, if you are a fan of things like William Shakespeare in Star Wars, you know how they've done like the parody artwork for that to make it look very Shakespearean. Here, with these badges for Japan's Star Wars Celebration, they have really leaned into that traditional Japanese art, and it looks phenomenal. I will say, I think my favorite two are Yoda and Ahsoka. I absolutely love those two in particular. They look absolutely amazing.
Wait, where is Yoda?
Oh, did you not see the Yoda one? It's not here on the link for StarWars.com. Let me actually find it for you. Because
Okay.
the Yoda one looks really cool.
Because all I see is Vader, Luke, Mando, and Grogu, and then Ahsoka.
Yeah, so I will actually Star Wars Holocron actually shared it, and so I'm putting it into the Star Wars Alliance chat right now.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and present so we can show the web page. So here is what we have for Ahsoka, and I don't like how they kind of did this with like the little zoom ins because
Well,
I would like
that's
to see the
why if you take it off of yours, I can actually show you all of them here on
okay.
the Holocron in their full art. Let me actually see here. Present, share screen. There we go.
Ah, yes.
Yes. So right here we have Darth Vader. We have Luke Skywalker and Yoda. Yoda is
Ooh.
meditating above a rock, which I think looks really, really cool. Then we have the Mandalorian and Grogu as well as Ahsoka. And like I said, I think my favorite two are Ahsoka and Yoda. I really like the way those look.
Being able to look at them full badge. I really like the Luke Skywalker one actually, mainly because of the tree in the background, the Japanese maple.
Mm-hmm.
That was, and I think that's just like sentimental reasons. The first two houses that I remember growing up at, um, had Japanese maples, and that was like my favorite tree to climb on.
Yeah, I really like um the fluidity of the
Yeah,
way these are drawn. Of course, that is, like I said, very traditional Japanese artwork. Um, I'm not entirely sure that I love the Mandalorian. I feel like
yeah,
it might just be a little too loose for me, considering he is a Mandalorian. Uh, but I like the Luke Skywalker one. The attention to like the the hand, of course, being the metal hand, so he does have it all black there, which I think is really, really cool. But yeah, absolutely love these. And I am jealous of anybody who is actually able to go.
okay. Before we dive into the book review, actually, Star Wars Holocron published their 5 top things that they learned from the Secrets of the Clone Troopers.
Oh, okay.
Which I found interesting. Okay, so the first one is Captain Rex is in Return of the Jedi. It talks about how Jango Fett was in fact adopted into a Mandalorian clan at a young age. Um, and then he earned his armor. He didn't steal it or anything. And they've got a screenshot of the whole page. I'm not reading the quotes or anything because if you buy the book, I want you to be able to experience that. Um, but and then it talks about how Dooku directly handpicked Jango Fett as the source of the genetic material, and oversaw the creation of the army. And then it also has some information about the Clone X operatives in the Bad Batch. And there's obviously still a lot to learn, but it reveals that Clone X operatives called themselves believers and were willing to take their own lives to protect the truth about their missions. And they were, by the Clone Rebellion, they were called Shadows because they were such stealthy devils. Um, and then the final thing they talked about, which isn't precisely new information, but it talks about what Rex was up to between Bad Batch and Rebels. And it said that he basically started a clone rebellion. And since the Empire wasn't willing to provide help to the clones, then they had to take matters into their own hands. He was able to keep to the shadows because the Empire had thought that he had died. And so he was able to form a network with soldiers like Echo and Gregor, but then ended up recruiting new members and had the regular support of rogue clones like Clone Force 99. So just to kind of sum up the information for like interesting things out of the book. So yeah.
Very, very cool. I know that these were like when this was first announced, we kind of talked about how like, oh, it may not be on our list because I know these are kind of geared towards a younger audience usually. But I'm really liking the info that is coming out of this book, so I might actually pick it up and put it as part of my collection for sure.
Yeah. I think I've got all the other ones. So I'll put this on my Christmas list. Somebody can pick it up for me for Christmas.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into Tears of the Nameless. Guys, this is a 55 chapter book from page 1 all the way to page 500. 500 pages exactly for chapter 1 to the end of chapter 55. This was a really nice read. Chapters were not too long. It wasn't a huge info dump on majority of it. It felt very fluid with this book. Even we have had conversations in the past when it comes to High Republic stuff about the issue with perspectives and if it should be something that should be simmered down a little bit and whatnot. I did not have a problem with the perspectives of this book. I think that each perspective shared a really interesting take on the story itself. But yeah, I think that there was a perspective in here that was a little bit lacking and kind of like for me was like, okay, why have it in there if it was lacking so much? And we'll get into that when we start talking specifics. But Katie, overall, what did you think about the book?
So just to kind of sum up my reaction, this is probably my second favorite book in the whole of the High Republic. Probably right behind Rising Storm.
Wow.
I felt the emotions with this one.
Yes,
Wreath,
100%.
George Mann explores Wreath to a degree I didn't know was possible. And that's saying a lot because that's not his original character. That's Claudia Gray's character. And like and he talks about it in the acknowledgments part at the end of the book, but he actually found a brain lesion at the when he was submitting the drafts for this book. And so it kind of like when he was writing this, it kind of evolved as he faced that battle, like wondering if it was cancerous or not. And I really like feel that journey with this because like I feel like there's some moments where it's like darkness, but then you have like this rising hope in there. And it feels like a personal journey.
And that is what I like most about this book. We talk about, or I specifically talk about the hunt for the happy ending for Star Wars. And there's a lot of times when I read Star Wars that I'm like, I'm never getting the happy ending. I'm never getting the happy ending. And even with this book, for a book that's called Tears of the Nameless, this is probably the closest thing to a happy ending that I'm going to get in Star Wars. There is a looming threat still, of course. This is not the ending of the High Republic, but we can definitely see that this is crawling to what will be the ending of this story. And we do get, like, I would say, like, because there's a lot of chaos near the end, but the last 4 chapters is like hope, hope, hope. The long stretch home. Like, this is like, we're almost there. We're going to fix this. Like, all of these different types of just like getting all that emotion and like, oh, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. So I get it. I understand that journey that you're talking about.
Yeah. I do want to mention, because I always forget to talk about this as part of our reviews, but I want to like make sure that I hit this. So we do have some LGBTQ representation in this
Yes.
book. Amadeo is revealed to be bisexual or pansexual, more likely, because he
Mhm.
talks about how he doesn't really care who he finds attractive, just as long as they have like a good personality. And then one of the
Dorian.
characters, Dorian, thank
Dorian
you.
is a trans male.
Yes.
He transitioned from a female. I can't remember if he had said very early, but it was long enough in his life that he was actually able to have like intense conversations with his family about it.
Yeah.
And he talks about that with Amadeo in this very heavy emotional part of the story. And I really liked how Dorian saw that Amadeo was going through some stressful things. And he's like, hey, I'm going to relate to you, but not take this limelight away from you in the
Yeah.
sense of how you are feeling. We are going to share in this moment so that way we both feel comfortable with each other. And then we're going to move on and we're going to make this the best experience that we possibly can.
Yeah.
And
It
I
felt
like that.
very natural conversation to
Yes.
have. It didn't feel shoehorned in. So I appreciated like having those aspects in there. So yeah.
Yes. I'm trying to remember if there was anybody else that was technically within that LGBTQ plus
maybe Comac.
group.
I feel like Comac was like asexual, but that could just also be Comac's personality.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have Leo.
Are established characters, but these two, Amadeo has been established before, but this was really Amadeo's and Wreath's book. Like, they were here majority of the time when it came to the perspectives of the story. So I can see why George Mann wanted to expand a little bit more about Amadeo than we've been able to see him in the past.
Yeah. And I want to go ahead and dive into just like some minor critiques. And I don't think they're really like anything particular with the book itself, but like one of them is like they talked about when the publishing initiative was announced, which I don't think you were a part of the podcast at that point, but they talked about when the publishing initiative was announced that you could read like the young adult books or the adult books and you would get a complete story. I think they kind of left that behind.
Yes, they
for
did.
This phase. There's and like I've tried to like rationalize it and go, oh yeah, you could totally like piece these together and get a full story. You can't do that because like this book directly picks off after Temptation of the Force. Like
it picks off right after Temptation of the Force, but midway through it, or not midway through, at the ending, it completely tells you like the latter half of oh shoot,
Beware the Nameless.
Yeah, Beware the Nameless, which in my mind, I'm like, okay, like the whole point in a lot of these different books, in our perspective, is especially for people like Travis, he's shown interest in reading the High Republic. I don't remember how far behind he is. I know that he wanted to skip phase 2 in order to pick up on phase 3 to pick up where he left off, where phase 1 was, right? And so for him, he was only reading the adult novels. This technically is not an adult novel. This is considered a young adult novel.
Yeah.
So, which I will probably tell him, like, hey, you probably want to read this one. It has a pretty important thing that you will need
and
to
he
know.
liked Wreath because he did read Into the Dark because he liked Claudia Gray.
Yes. So we will recommend this book, but like getting that latter half of Beware the Nameless could possibly be like, oh, that kind of helps me out here. But if it was somebody just picking up a young adult novel in Star Wars, you're like, what in the world is going on here?
Yeah. And not to mention, like, we've already talked about oh my gosh, what is the manga? Um the manga. Oh my gosh.
Edge of
It's right
Balance.
behind me. Yeah, Edge of Balance 3. So Edge of Balance 3 features Wreath, Yoda, and Aslan.
Yep.
But the Aslan, so it's hard to picture where this takes place in regards to that timeline. It's like echoes. I think I keep saying echoes. Edge of Balance 3 before or after this, because I feel like it's
I think
after.
it's before. Oh, you think it's after?
I feel like it's after.
I'm gonna have to read it again because I think it's before.
Ooh.
Because, and this is where we get into small, detailed spoilers, not very big. The relationship between Wreath and Aslan in Edge of Balance 3 seems a little less confrontational than what we see at the very end of this book.
Right, but in that same regard, I feel like Aslan has a change of heart at the end of Edge of Balance 3. So that's why it's afterwards, because they're
Oh, that's
confrontational.
true.
And then Aslan kind of has that moment with the Wookiee Jedi Master. And just kind of goes, okay, like I have seen the light.
More so than that, we have already talked about it, so it's okay to talk about it. In Edge of Balance 3, he confronts a Nameless willingly.
Yeah,
where
because
before
Wreath
that,
talks,
he has always been scared of the Nameless, which is why he went down the path of the dark side previously.
And Wreath, in the ending chapters, tells Aslan, "Hey, I faced a Nameless. I faced a, and I can't remember if he said Shriekerai or not.
Yeah.
Okay, he does. And so Aslan's like, "Oh my gosh, you faced it and you survived? What?" And so, like, to me, that doesn't speak of someone who has faced a Nameless and survived yet, like he does in Edge of Balance 3.
That is very true. That is very true. So you might have just convinced me that it does take place afterward. But that's also like a little critique of mine is I was a little annoyed that this book was planned on, correct me if I'm wrong, this book was supposed to come out before Beware the Nameless, correct? Or no?
No.
It wasn't?
I think it was always set to come out after Beware the Nameless.
Okay, because I thought you had said, because you finished the book before me, and you, of course, read the acknowledgement and everything else, and you said the release schedule or something had changed due to his condition.
Oh, no. I was talking about how they potentially, like, lengthened phase 3. Like,
oh, okay,
to maybe help out a little bit while he had all his scans done and everything, because everything, like, for the High Republic, everything's kind of taken place over like a year-ish, like for each phase, and this one's taking place over a year and a half. So to me, that's like, and not to say that I blame them, like we've already talked about this, but it was just like, So
trying to think of anything else less spoilerish.
The one thing, and probably still a critique, but this is like the last one I have, is I thought Sakaris, which is a Children of the Storm character in the book. So we get to know a little bit about Bulin and everything, and how the Children of the Storm are developed into kind of using that nameless power. We won't go into that part, but I thought he could have been used a little bit better. Like that's like my only critique
I
of the
think
actual
so
book
too.
itself.
He was very much a mustache twirling villain.
Yeah.
You know? And I am always a little bit annoyed by those because I'm like, guys, come on. This is an entire universe that we have built here with the High Republic. Like, there's so many tools at your disposal. Like, we don't need to use these stereotypes as far as villain stereotypes to push a story along. So yeah, I do agree. I feel like he should have been used a little bit more strongly. Um, and the ending of that character, less, getting into spoilers, and I'm sorry. Like, I always feel like that type of thing that happened to him is like, okay, like I guess, like, and it's been happening a lot. Like, that's not the first time that's happened.
I feel like we've added so many characters that sometimes it feels like, okay, we've got to add this character, but then like we've got to drop him.
Mm-hmm. So it's the easiest way to just be like, hey, let's just make this happen, right?
Yeah. Whereas, like, I'm still hoping the publishing initiative doesn't actually end with phase 3, that other authors or these authors are able to go back in and fill in some blanks. That would be really good.
Really want them to. Like, I really do. And I think that there's a lot of people that are really willing to say, like, hey, let's keep going with this. We will purchase these books if you keep going.
Yeah, but it's also like Michael Siglain has also talked about how they have something else planned.
I was literally going to say both Tom and Michael have told everybody, oh, don't worry, we have things planned. But we already know that they have like the trilogy of the oh shoot, what is the title of that trilogy called?
We're gonna get more news about it this week, apparently.
Yeah, I saw that in our Star Wars
Mask of Fear.
Yes. They have that coming up, fairly soon, and that's way too separated from the timeline. So I'm just like, no, like, don't go back to that.
That's not going to be it. Like, I am highly betting that they are going to go in to Star Wars Celebration and tell us the bare minimum. Like, we are going to get the project name. Like, we had Project Luminous for a full year before it was ever actually announced.
That's true.
So, Star Wars Celebration, I'm betting money on it. We're getting something.
Hopefully. But I want to go specifically into chapter 25.
All right, here's your spoiler-heavy warning.
Yes, spoiler-heavy warning. This is for chapter 25 because I also texted you, Katie, this morning saying, or was it last night? It was one of the two. I think it was either last night or this morning, where I said I only have criticism towards this book if there is no answers for this specific thing. And I should have criticism because they didn't answer it, but it looks like this is going to be a stretched out plot line, which I am totally okay with as long as it actually gets answered. So, guys, in chapter 25, we open up with Wreath having a vision. Katie, you are muted.
Sorry. I didn't know if Matt was going to be standing outside the door, so I muted. I had to let Antilles out so he could get pee.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
I loved this vision. It was so articulate and like haunting. It was intense that man uses, and like, just go ahead and spoil it. It does not get resolved by the end of the book.
It does not get resolved, but also you have to remember, you're saying how like you love like how creepy and stuff it was. Remember, George Mann did write in phase 2 the most terrifying book that we read,
and I hated it.
And you hated it. And now you're looking at this and you're like, it's so intense and beautiful and disgusting and awesome. And like, so here's the thing. Wreath has a vision. And I need to know, because this like magnum opus, my brain literally broke in half when this vision took place, because I was like, hold the fucking phone. They knew this the entire goddamn time, and nobody has decided to say, hey, you know what? There's time for renovations, or hey, maybe we should move this temple over there when there is not a goddamn Sith freaking temple underneath us. What
Wait.
the fuck? Like,
Wait, we knew that already. That was revealed in Into the Dark.
but that's the thing. This whole time, they're just like, yeah, it's there. So what? Like,
Right, but
ooh,
they're trying
like,
to recover the vergence that's there because remember, like the Sith built the temple there specifically because of the vergence. So the Jedi won the war and tried to take over the Sith temple so they could repurpose the vergence for the light.
I may have forgotten that little bit, but I'm reading this, and I'm like, you guys knew the entire time. Like, I'm getting frustrated, but also like, okay, there's got to be like something to this, like, right? So Reith is like, I gotta tell someone, and I'm like, okay, he's gonna tell. Like, this is me relearning that everybody knows about this, right? Without me actually relearning because I just forgot. So then he goes to Vernestra, and Vernestra's like, oh, you mean the Sith Temple? And I'm like, you knew too? What is wrong with everybody here? You are all just as bad as Yoda. What the hell? And so they're just like, let's go check it out. And they are walking down these steps, just chilling. They're like, we're going to the Sith Temple. We're going to the Sith Temple. Yeah.
Y'all, Clay's got tears coming out of my eyes. I'm laughing so hard.
And they go to this Sith Temple, and it starts to get really intense. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it is, like, Vernestra's feeling very weary about it. Reith is feeling very weary about it. Like, they're pulling out their lightsabers. They're ready to attack. And, like, Vernestra's like, what's on the other side of this door? And Reith is like, no. And they open the door, and there's nothing. In the vision, Reith basically saw himself as the way that Aslan is today. Sunken in eyes, no eyeballs, like the whole shrivelly up. Like, basically, he saw himself as Aslan. And so he's like, this is going to be very wrong. There's something behind here that just doesn't feel right. They open the door, and there's nothing there. And they're like, oh. But then, like, when their eyes started to really focus and, like, the light started to shine inside of the temple, they're like, oh, blight. And then I felt like throwing this book out the freaking window because I'm like, the blight is in Coruscant underneath the temple.
It's never revealed how the blight gets there.
And that is the answers that I need. And this is why I'm like semi pissed off, but also I'm like, okay, fine. This is probably an ongoing story, blah, 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 blah. Because, small spoilers for the ending of the book, the investigation keeps going as of why this is happening. And again, this is why I think, like, I'm totally on the side of Adrian. Jedis are cops. They're not great cops. They are bad cops, okay? They know that this viral infection that is a world destroyer is on their planet, and they're like, don't tell anyone. We're not going to tell anyone.
And they choose to use so they're trying to hold it back with the blight method that Buryaga picked up in Temptation of the Force.
Yes. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. But then this asshole named Yoda is using this technique along with 3 other Jedi. And Vernestra one day is like, hey, Yoda, I know I shouldn't be here and like destroying your concentration or whatever, but I really feel this and I really need to, you really need to talk to somebody about it. And Yoda's like, don't worry about it. I can talk. And as soon as his concentration, like, just stops on the blight, you, like, the way George Mann describes it, every other Jedi just starts to, like, slump over and is, like, struggling. And Vernestra's like, Yoda, I think you need to help these people. And Yoda's like, they got it. They're good. Like, they don't need
good
me.
They are.
Yoda is an asshole. My God. I'm like,
He just likes to have faith in the people around him.
This thing literally destroying worlds, destroying entire ecosystems, killing millions of people across the galaxy, and yet it's like, it's fine. We're cool. I'll get back to it. It's not like it's going anywhere. I'll be there in a second. I'll fix it, you know? Like, what an asshole.
I'm gonna die. Oh my gosh.
Like, this dude is totally a freaking jerk. I was like, Yoda, I'm done with you, man. Like, I have made this joke about him being the worst character in Star Wars for so long. I think this did it. This totally was just like the icing on the cake. Like, I'm like, whatever, man. And you don't see him again after this incident. You hear him in reference of like Vernestra saying like, "Oh, I'll talk to the council" or whatever. But after this one incident of him just like totally like sidestepping these other Jedi and letting them just basically probably die, like it's just like whatever. But that's the thing. This thing is slowly taking over the temple, and they're using this technique to hold it off. And we're not going to say how they are able to hold it off for so long, but like it's still growing. And of course, we know that there's still a Coruscant and there's still a Jedi temple by the time that Obi-Wan is a master and Anakin is in the temple and all the other things. This is where
how
I
do
was
you wrap this up in 3 books?
That's my thing. That is my thing. Because we learn, quote unquote, it's honestly just relearning the secret of how to stop the Nameless. But like
the staff that Marchion Ro carries.
Like we see like these revelations that like Reith is having in his lab. It's like, oh man, it's gonna be this thing, and like all this research, like I'm so close to the answer. And it's like, are you telling me that we knew the goddamn answer the whole time?
Well, we the audience knew it.
Yes, but here's the problem that I have. The staff we have seen stops or prevents. I'm not going to say stop because it hasn't proven. We haven't seen that it proves anything. Because look at the mother in phase 2. She, double-edged sword here, was using herself as a feeding tube for the Nameless, as well as fending it off with these things. So like, is it really something that can stop them? Or like, you know, like...
Right, but that's not the blight.
And that's the other thing. We see Reith and Amadeo come up with this hypothesis. Oh, they're one and the same, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And they are, but they aren't, right? Like, that is just very clear. Like, hey, one comes from an actual living thing while the other just manifests and destroys planets. So like in my mind, I'm like, how the hell you can see physically through this thing that Reith was able to see. Okay, this staff stops these monsters, creatures, because there's Affy and Reith both like see some sort of humility in these creatures, and they're like, okay, they're also being used as weapons, which I totally understand, which I get it, right? But the blight is not a creature that you can just stop, and that's what I'm wanting to know. Like, how is this going to be resolved in a sense? Like, because for us, let's go into real life for a second. The blight in my mind, and I even said this when Wave 3 was kind of shown as this, like, oh, the sickness is going to be taking over the galaxy. I even asked you, is this way too close to home with COVID? With COVID, it's a virus. And we know, okay, we fight viruses with viruses, vaccines, and all of this. There is science with this. The blight is taking on such an entity of organic, natural things. Like, how are we going to take care of this in universe that's not going to feel like, oh, we fixed it, you know?
So my thought process is so okay, so the Echoes of Fear is where I keep getting echoes from. That's a comic run that's done by George Mann, talking about the stones that we saw Barnabas Vim looking for in phase 2.
Yes.
And so in that regard, my thought process is there's 3 stones, and so Marcion Rowe's staff contains 2 of them, we think. And so there's another one out there. So potentially uniting all 3 stones based off the Ptolemites that we get to not meet, but also sort of meet in this book. My thought process is reuniting those stones and returning all of the Nameless back to their planet. That stops all of the blight.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get rid of it like we see on the Ptolemites' homeworld. There's a metal that's stopping the blight on the homeworld. So, my question for you, because that metal does not get a name in this book, is that correct?
Correct. It just says an ore.
Is this the reveal or the first time we see cortosis? And cortosis has multiple uses.
I was thinking the exact same thing, because the way and we also saw that, you know, a different way to use Kyber in this book as well, as coffins. That was interesting. But the idea of cortosis being introduced here as a nullifier to the blight, that would be interesting. But again, and this is just a victim of writers having ideas after the fact, right? Oh, cortosis is a thing, so I'm going to find an origin for it, right? That's just unfortunately how things are created sometimes. And so we only see very small portions of cortosis in canon currently. And we are now about to find a huge reservoir of it to save an entire galaxy. That's my issue. That's my problem.
I don't think we've only seen it in small bits, though. I don't think so. So yeah, there's a whole mine in the Thrawn plant in Thrawn Alliances.
Yep.
And then we see a small vein in the Acolytes. So, and then like in Dr. Aphra, there's like, she has a full-on cortosis blade. So, and that's what she uses to battle Darth Vader. So I'm thinking like we only saw it in a small vein, but that in the Acolyte, but that's only because we only saw that portion.
Yeah, very true. I think it would be cool. I think that it's a good introduction to cortosis, and it would make sense. See, it does and does not make sense, because here's the thing. Wreath, and again, this is a double-edged sword in the sense of like how you make these characters before and after the fact of how things already are in the Star Wars universe, right? Wreath is a character that we have seen in this book say, hey, this isn't for the glory of myself, it's for the, you know,
survival of the galaxy.
It's the survival of the galaxy, right? But at the same time, Wreath is a scientist. He's going to dissect every little piece of new thing that he can find. And he gets so excited about these things. So for this ore and for cortosis and all of these other things, like for things like the acolyte, I feel like because this is taking place before the acolyte, Jedi should know what cortosis is. You know?
Right, but the acolyte's 150 years later.
I understand. And you're right. I mean, that bastard Yoda is hiding all the information from all of his Jedi. So, oh, these dudes are going to die anyway. Might as well keep all of this information for myself. Sorry, I still can't get over that, dude.
I mean, Vernestra would know what cortosis is. Like,
exactly. And I think that would make a little bit more of an intriguing conversation for a season 2, people. And flashbacks on why he decides to get a cortosis helmet through the stories of Vernestra telling him, oh, there was this one time.
Right, and we're not saying it is cortosis. I just had a theory.
It's a theory, yeah. And I'm not trying to like dissect and destroy the theory. I'm just saying this is how the theory could work and it couldn't work. These are two different things.
And so, I don't think there's anything wrong with giving it an origin story.
Yeah,
like
no, not at all.
So, yeah.
I think that it would be very interesting. One other thing as far as topics go, I've always said how I love the very fantasy things in science fiction and in fantasy novels. We get to see a Titan in this book. Like, and I say Titan, like, you remember how big the Bendu was in Rebels. I'm just going to say this, guys. Think of a Titan. Think of Godzilla. There's a Godzilla in Star Wars. They've introduced a Godzilla in Star Wars. Now, it's not actual lizard like Godzilla, but think of size of Godzilla. They've introduced it in Star Wars.
So, like, to give people a picture, like, have you seen Avatar, The Last Airbender, like the animated one?
The animated one, yes.
Have you seen Korra?
Yes.
Okay, so you know the episode where they talk about the creation of bending and these giant turtles with like the islands. I'm basically thinking that.
Oh no, it's bigger. It's bigger than
really that. You think it's bigger?
Yeah. If you go back and read, there's a moment. There's 3 different times that they explain the size of this thing.
Yeah.
One, Wreath is explaining the feet, and then they explain the head, and then they explain the spine. If you are thinking it out, you can literally see the expansion of this creature. Okay. This thing is massive to the point of it creating earthquakes on the planet that they are on.
I guess I would have thought that the Avatar one was similar, but I've always had trouble like picturing depth and everything.
Like because the way that they describe it, and I know we're kind of getting more into spoilers, but there's this creature that they thought was a mountain at first, and then he describes, oh, that peak that I thought was a mountain. Oh, that was only a piece of its spine. If you think of a whole spine, think of one piece of it. Think of where its head might be.
Yeah.
At that point.
Okay.
You're like, holy crap. And then they are explaining with every step, the entire core of the planet is shifting and shaking. And then at one point, it kind of makes it seem smaller, but then like you really start to read, this thing the Nameless decide to go after it. It's like, ooh, food. And I'm like, dude, you're dead. And it never even like concludes with like, oh, the Nameless dies. Like it literally, the Nameless jumps on its back, and it eventually is just like, I'm gonna go back in the water, and then you're gonna drown. Like, and it never resolves it. They just like run away because they're just like, we're not
used
gonna
it as
deal
a
with
distraction.
this. Exactly. And I like the fact that we got to see basically Godzilla in Star Wars. That makes me happy. I'm like, this is freaking phenomenal. Like, and it gets to a point where like these things are so strong in the Force and so dormant in how they were just resting on this planet. Like, just communicating with it, like, absolves Wreath of almost all of his energy. Like, he's like, this is taking literally everything out of me. But at the same time, he feels like this is the strongest thing in the Force that he has ever felt in his entire life. Like, that's cool. Like, yeah. I was getting goosebumps and I was getting really giddy, like reading this whole thing. I was like, this is so cool. But yeah, I really dug this book. As far as naming it, I think it might be top 5. I would really have to go back. I think after Phase 3 is completely over, I think I'm going to go through a full reread. I think I'm going to go from Light of the Jedi all the way to Trials of the Jedi.
I think so too, and I think we need to try to get the Minok Manor guys on, so we could all do like a giant rank fest or something.
Yeah, I think that would be really, really fun.
So we need to talk about the elephant in the room, though. And I think this is the last thing we need to talk about, because we talked about how Wreath had great character development, Amadeo, fantastic, but we need to talk about one character we have not mentioned yet. Well, I guess we did technically mention him. Anyways, Comac. I thought the way that Comac was reintegrated in the flashback sequences that we get for Comac was incredible. It really speaks a lot into the imposter syndrome that Comac faces. And you saw it, you see it in every book that Comac has really been in. That he deals with that imposter syndrome that, okay, I have faith, but do I have faith? But like, really? And just articulating that instance with Orla. By the way, I love getting Orla back. Like, she was gone too soon. Like, can we please have her back? Like, Force Ghost Orla, please.
And
we almost did.
We almost did. I got really excited.
I did too.
And I was like, there's no way. It makes total sense that out of everybody, she would be the one to do it, right?
Yes.
And I was like, this is amazing. Like, this would be so fun as like, oh, the one and only, because she has connections to Elzar, to Cormac. Like, it would be so good. And I really wanted it to happen. I kind of got a little upset when like it wasn't real. And I was like,
I did too.
Damn it. Like, why did you do this to me, George? Why? But yeah, I really enjoyed that moment.
What did you think about Comac during the whole book?
You call it an elephant in the room, and I don't know how I feel about it, because like you said, he has this imposter syndrome. There was like, it was a huge moment for him to just hand over his lightsaber and go walk into the jungle and then him just disappear, right? And then we just see him randomly on this planet. He gets hunted by this Jedi hunter. And then he's like, I have to go home, but is it really my home? I'm not entirely sure. And then he has these like awkward conversations with Wreath. And then at the very end, they're like, oh, he's going to stick around for a little while. We don't know for how long, but it is what it is. And like, then him and Wreath have this, like, they end the book with, oh, don't worry, I'm here. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, until when?
Because I think he's going to come back, though.
I don't know how I feel about that, due to the fact that we've seen other Jedi walk away.
Mhm.
And they've had this idea of like coming back but not coming back. I mean, famously, she came back at the worst time ever, but look at Ahsoka. She's like, I'm not really back, but I'm back. And then like Order 66, and she's like, shit. With Cormac, I think I'll be okay because Reith is okay. Because I think Reith overall was really struggling. Like, my boy was like, he was having an identity crisis without Cormac. And just like the really awkward thing was from time to time, he was just like, Master. And he's like, oh, it's just Cormac. Blah, blah, blah. And like trying to kind of separating him, but not really separating from him because he still wanted to be there for Reith. But in the end, they're like having just normal conversations. I think he will be there for the ending of this phase as a Jedi Master. So I think it'll be fine, but like
I think he's gonna get a council spot.
You think he'll get a council spot?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Well, I mean, you can fail upwards, I guess. You left the Jedi Order. Welcome to the council.
But that's what Yoda does. I mean, he did that with oh my gosh, what's the Jedi Master that was Lula Talasola's?
Yes. No, you're totally right. Yep.
Cantum Psi. That's who it is. That's what he did. And it's basically just part of your journey. And that's what I think Comac's on, is a journey.
I mean, I guess.
Okay. Gosh, I was gonna say one more thing. Damn it. I can't remember what I was gonna say. And it was something completely different, so it wasn't even like something that you could go like point me back on track.
This was a great book, guys. I think that you will have a lot of fun with it. It is very intense, very sad, very hype in so many different ways of this book. I'm sorry, I'm going to spoil this one thing. I'm just going to say R.I.P. Master Locks.
Yeah.
In the worst possible way. Like with a smile on his face and everything. Like, oh, it ripped my heart out. It hurt.
I remembered. So you talked about a name drop. Were you talking about Barnabas Vim?
No, I was talking about, because again, remember, I didn't remember. So when I saw the Virgins, I was like, the Acolyte. I remember what a Virgins was. And I was like, oh, they're talking about Virginses. This is cool. But you're over here like, yeah, we knew this, Clay. Like, are you an idiot? Like, what's wrong with you? And I'm over here like, I don't know. Here we go.
I'll tell you, the only reason I remember is because we talked about it with the Acolyte, and I looked up to see, because I thought we had like, this wasn't the first appearance of a Virgins. Yeah. And so I looked it up then, and that's when I read the Wikipedia article that allowed me to remember.
Yeah. So, like, I saw at the very end of Vernestra talking about a Virgins, and I was like, oh, it's there, cool. And then you're over here like, Clay, we knew this. It's like, fuck, I don't remember.
Oh, I remembered one more thing. Sorry. This is the last thing, I swear. Because I'm ready for bed, as you can tell, because I'm getting like this weird energy thing. Okay, so a spy. Stop looking at me like that. So somebody reveals to Bulin that Reith and Comac are going to the Ptolemites' homeworld.
Yes, this goes along with my whole, like, it's not revealed thing, and answers still need to be answered. Who do you think it is?
I don't think it's Aslan.
I don't think it's Aslan either.
I think they put the communicator station there to make it look like Aslan.
So Aslan is too obvious. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
Aslan is like the hey, look over here, look over here. I'm
Yep.
over here, look, and it's not Aslan. If it's Yoda, I completely understand. But like,
I don't think it's Yoda.
guys, Yoda has been the Dark Lord the entire time. That is
Jar
the
Jar.
secret to Star Wars. That is the secret to Star Wars. Palpatine was just a face, okay?
I didn't think I'd laugh this much in this review.
I don't know who it is though. That's the thing that pisses me off. Like because they make it very subtle, okay? So the reveal of the Jedi Temple, the Blight, and all of this stuff comes at chapter 25, and then we start to see a little bit more of Vernestra down near Aslan's chambers, which is where you see the communication room. And it's just the way George Mann plays it is like, oh, you see Bulin have this conversation, then they go on the mission, you hear the transmission again, and then like if you're not paying attention, you're like, oh shit, hold on a second. There's somebody within the Jedi Temple feeding information. And here's the thing. I'm going to mention something that is technically canon in Star Wars, but not within the timeline of High Republic. We know that in the Red Blade,
Okay.
the janitor was in on the secrets of the temple and all of this other stuff, right? And like we know that eventually Palpatine will get in there and everything else. The Jedi Temple is really old. I mean, the Sith Temple is very old. The Sith Temple is very old. What if this is to lay seeds of like the very early inklings of the Sith making their first steps to take over and all of this?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Or do you think it's going to be resolved? Like
I think it's going to get resolved. And I'm going to tell you.
I wanted to put on my tinfoil hat on for a little second because it was immediate, like, oh, you know, it could be the janitor, and I was like, that's stupid, but it could be.
It could be.
But that's and here's the thing, though, like, if it's not somebody that is already pre-introduced, if it's not a pre-existing character, I'm gonna feel let down because it's like, I don't know who that is. That's not a big impactful thing. Who cares? But if it's somebody that I know, that's gonna hit a lot harder.
So I'm gonna tell you who I think it is. And it's specifically because of one line in this book. So Master Rai Kisaka comes to Wreath after the council meeting where he talks about Aslan and is like, don't trust Aslan.
Yeah, he plants the seed. He's like, I don't think you should do it. Like, remember, he's not looking for your best interest. And again, we see a lot of that in this book. But I think it's only to deter the reader from thinking, oh, it's Aslan who's doing it.
Yeah. And because remember, Rai Kisaka was like, he was put into, I think it was the Art of the High Republic as a Grand Master. But then in Characters of the Jedi, he wasn't a Grand Master. And then he got promoted like during the year between Phase 1 and Phase 3 as a Grand Master. So he's kind of risen up and everything. But what if he got and that's why he disappeared and like came back? And so he's a secret Children of the Storm.
Oh, I never considered that.
It's got to be, because I thought that was what was going to happen with Eve, was that Eve was going to go in and then they were going to send her back out as a
So
Jedi.
that's why I think your theory has a lot to it, because the I forget his name, the Jedi hunter,
Sakaris.
Sakaris kept on reiterating like, oh, I need a live one. Like, this is going to be a good test for Father. I need a live one. I need a live one. I'm like, and I'm thinking like, why do you need a Jedi that's alive? Like, there's nothing in previous books that have said.
I think it's all in the comic, the Marvel comic.
Yeah. So that's
that's
what
where
I mean.
Bulin
Like,
is featured.
and that's what I mean. Like, people who are just reading the books, because remember, I'm waiting until a lot of these books are collected and everything. So I'm falling behind a little bit, but not as much. So like, I may have to pick up the comic and see if there's any more connecting dots here.
So the Marvel comic comes out in November, and that's through issue 10. Plus, it has the Kelnaka issue, so we'll talk about that then. And that's in November. But then Echoes of Fear, oh my gosh, the bounty hunter Jedi Padawan girl with a purple lightsaber, Tai. It's been like Cavan Scott's like all ages comic book.
Oh yes, the Jedi
Padawan bounty hunter person.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about.
I see the face. Like, I literally have the art in my head. Like, I can see it. Yeah.
I just can't think of the title of that comic. So those are getting collected in March and April, I think. And then we'll see how the High Republic Adventures comes, because I don't know when that's getting collected. So
yeah. We will see. It's going to be very interesting. I think that having a double agent within the Jedi Temple is very interesting, because not only would we then have an answer for who warned the Nihil about said missions, but we then have an answer of who gave birth to the Blight on Coruscant. Like, I think
100%.
So we will see, because it's the perfect cover up to be like, oh, it's a bad omen. The Sith Temple created the Blight, type of thing.
Yeah.
Because it's a thing, like, because again, you look at these things that were like ancient, like legends, like the Shri Karai, and like feeding into it, and like all these different things, right? And just planting that seed, like metaphorically and like literally, with the Blight in the Jedi Temple, like, you create a whole new legend of like how like evil this place is and all of this other stuff. So
yeah,
I think that would actually make a lot of sense.
And it's all coming to a head as Marchion Ro heads to Coruscant.
Yep.
All right, well, I think that brings us to a conclusion for tonight.
Yes, it does. And I am getting tired. I just got a text saying that Amberlyn wants to tell me good night. So we got to call it a night. So again, guys, thank you so much for being here with these reviews. We love doing them, and which is why we really hope that the High Republic continues. We will continue with any and all Star Wars books with these reviews, but we are really enjoying the High Republic. So with that, guys, thank you so much. Remember, you can always find me at Fanboy Clay on Twitter and any and all social media. Go check out Ranger Alliance, also on the network. We have not had an episode in a very long time. That is because of scheduling and technical difficulties. I really do apologize, but we should be getting an episode out to you very, very soon. Our schedules are finally opening up to do that. So go check that out. And also just want to shout out Geekverse. They are having another, of course,
charity spectacular.
Charity 24-hour stream. Of course, I'm sure they will have, of course, the trivia battle. It's going to be very interesting to see who all attends, who hosts, and all of that. So I think it'll be very, very fun. But yeah, Kate, what about you?
All right, so y'all, you can find me on most social media platforms. It is at Slates with Katie. This show you can find on Twitter. It is at Star Wars Alliance with the 8 in the War is very important. Don't forget it. Remember, that is also our email address at gmail.com. Star Wars Alliance at gmail.com. No A in the Wars. Don't forget, you can also shoot us a text or leave us a voicemail. It is 830-538-4828. So with that, y'all, I want to wish everyone a great day or night, whatever time of day you are listening or watching, and we will see y'all next time. May the Force be with you.